Hello, I'm Seán Dwyer, your professor if you're in my classes. And if not, I hope you'll find this video useful. The pronunciation of Spanish may or may not seem important to you, but let me assure you that it is. Let me give you perspective. If you have practiced English with somebody who's trying to learn English and doesn't have a very good grasp of pronunciation, they're going to use a lot of sounds from their native language. And that can make it extremely difficult for you to understand what they're trying to say. So if you speak Spanish in such a way that your classmates understand you well, that does not necessarily mean that native speakers of Spanish will understand you unless they have a lot of experience talking to English speakers who are learning Spanish. And so the same thing will potentially happen to you if you travel abroad and you're trying to use your Spanish, because the word idea, for example, if you say tengo una idea, the listener is going to have no idea what you're trying to say, because idea means, oh, a day, or something like that. And the word, you say, yo quiero ir a la oficina, because office, oficina, there's no such thing as an oficina in Spanish. It's not going to make any sense. So you need to learn to pronounce, at the very least, the vowels with native accuracy. And that's easy enough to do because Spanish has just 5 vowel sounds. All 5 vowels have one spot for your lips, and they should never lose the tension. If you have ever played an instrument like a trumpet or perhaps a clarinet, you know that you have to hold your mouth a certain way to get the sound to sound good. And so in Spanish, this is what you focus on my lips, and you can see how your lips should be placed in order to make the vowel sounds. They are as such: a, e, I, o, u, a, e, I, o, u. And note, please, that those are the only 5 sounds you get. So if you put your lips in the right place, you will get the right sound. We don't have the eh, we don't have the we don't have the I, we don't have the eh. Or the I. So if you say something like tu tienes or something, you're just not going to be understandable. Get your vowels, and once you get the position for the vowel, you have to maintain it for as long as you hold the vowel. A good example is the sportscaster who is considered amusing when he says goal during a soccer game in Spanish. He says goal. He never breaks that O. It's never goal. And you don't say things like tengo una idea, right? The vowels never slack. If you keep your vowels right, you're going to be in much better shape than people who don't. Let's look at the letter B. B is a harder sound than most consonants, but B in Spanish is not a plosive. It doesn't produce air the way the English B does. We say, boy, oh boy, right, in English. But if you say it bebe in Spanish, you're really going to start with a m, like an M, and just go be. You voice it, but if you put your hand in front of your mouth and say bebe, you should essentially get no air. Okay. That's always the case. The letter C has 2 different sounds. You have ka, ko, ku, which is the hard C's, and with E or I, you get se, si. And I'll mention now that if you're in Spain, you would have, for the last 2, you'd have fe, fi. And that, those particular sounds use the actual TH of English, close enough anyway. Fe, fi, all right? You don't in Latin America. Ka, ko, ku, se, si. Repitan. Ka, ko, ku, se, si. Okay. The letter D is another letter that is both voiced and makes air in English, but in Spanish, while it's voiced, it does not make air. So what you want to do is put the tip of your tongue at the bottom of your front teeth and roll your tongue up to be flat against your teeth. And you go, de, de, instead of D, where you have all that air. Say de, and no air. De, and de, right? That'll make you sound native. The letter F is pronounced pretty much the same as English. Ferrocarril. Talk about the R's later. Letter G, like the letter C, has two different sounds. Ga, go, gu. And then with the eyes, ke, ki. It makes the H sound in those situations. So you have gigante, for example, Gigante, gante. The letter H is going to be extremely difficult, despite the fact that you do not pronounce it at all in Spanish. That's because in English, we of course have the letter H. We say things like hotel. And so when you come across the word hotel in Spanish and it's hotel, you're still potentially going to say hotel. You need to not do that. And like the word, if you're going to say, I have three brothers, tengo tres hermanos. A lot of people I've heard say, tengo tres hermanos. In my class, if you pronounce an H that should not be pronounced, which is basically all of them, I will stop class, because if there's one letter that's easy to pronounce properly, it's H. Now, I'm going to pronounce it, and then I'd like you to repeat after me, okay? On the count of three. 1, 2, 3. There. Now you do it. Perfect. So if in class somebody says, tengo tres hermanos, I'm going to say, pause. Okay, everybody, practice your H. And I'll say, I want to hear your letter H. And if I hear hermano or hermano, I'll say, that's not H. So then I'll hear and I'll say, that's not H. So then once I get the room quiet for about 5 seconds, then I'll say, that's H. Okay. The only time H has any effect on the pronunciation of a letter is when it's combined with C, the CH. I didn't mention che, because che has been removed by the alphabet after Spain gave up on Microsoft finding a way to alphabetize the Spanish dictionary properly. So che, CH is always che. The letter J is pronounced as an English H. So Javier, Jota, ajedrez, okay? Those are your J's. And it'll never be pronounced J. Okay? The letter K is a borrowed letter, borrowed from Greek. It's a kappa. And K doesn't really occur in very many words. It'll occur with Greek words that are where K is followed by I, like kilometro, so all the kilo words. There are some other borrowed words, but really Spanish itself didn't generate very many words that have a K in it. So if you want a hard K sound, you have kakoku, and if you're going to have one with K, it's usually going to be QUE. If you're going to have KI, that'll be primarily Greek words, whereas QUI also makes a K, key sound. The letter L, pretty much the same as English, but we have the double L, yeah, okay, which is pronounced differently. In Argentina, a lot of people pronounce it shama, and there are places where it's pronounced as pretty much an L plus a yeah. So llama, for example, como te llamas. Glad I don't speak that dialect. That's hard to say. But the AJ is a letter still. Okay. M, like English. The letter N, like English. But you have to watch out for its twin, the ñe. In the old days, Spanish wrote the word año, for example, with two N's, A-N-N-O. And that was pronounced año. scribes of the time, having very little writing surfaces to work with, figured out that they could shorten a few words. They took the D and E of de and smashed them together, for example. And they took the N and N of nye and put the second N over the top of the first N as a little squiggle, which we now call the tilde on the end. And so año is written with an nye, not an N. And that's very important to keep straight, because if somebody says to you, ¿Cuántos años tienes? And you say, tengo 20 años, you aren't saying I'm 20 years old. You're saying I have 20 buttholes. So meditate on that for a moment. The letter P is like B, but not voice. So instead of B, it's P, right? But just as with the B, you don't say pa pa and produce a lot of air. You say pa pa. So ba ba pa pa, just not voice, same thing. You get the B down, you get the P, and vice versa. The letter Q, used with E or I, is ke or ki, like quien. And for the rest of the situations that involve the qua sound, you will use a C plus a U. The letter R is both easy to pronounce and difficult to pronounce. Oh, how can I mean that? Well, there are two different sounds. The first one that I'm going to address is the R, the single R in the middle of a word. It's pronounced like the flapped T in a word like butter. So repitan, butter, butter, butter. Now with butter, if you take that and take, for example, the word para, P-A-R-A, in Spanish, you're going to use that same flapped T for your R sound. So repitan, butter, 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 para, para, butter, para, butter, para, butter, para. Okay, so there you go. And so instead of saying, yo tengo un regalo para ti, don't say para for P-A-R-A. For one thing, the A is pronounced ah, the R is pronounced, and the P should not be, should not have a plosive element to it. So you want to say para, 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 para. Repitan, para, para. Okay. The other R, however, the R at the beginning of the word, the double R in the middle of the word, and the R at the end of the word should be trilled. You might think, oh, I can't trill my R's. I say rojo. Well, maybe you do say rojo right now. And it's true that the trilled R is not as necessary for being understood as other sounds are. The trilled R, if you think back to when you were a little kid, sometimes you wanted to pretend you were an airplane, you'd go, okay, you were trilling your R. Maybe you were playing army with friends and you say, trilling your R. So there's really no reason why you can't revert to your childhood, open up your tongue to all of the sounds you used to be able to make when you were a year old. And rather than have it, whittling it down to the sounds you can make in English, expand it enough to add the trilled R. So this is how it should sound. The word red, rojo, rojo, rojo. All right. And trabajar, trabajar. Although the last one, some people pronounce it more like a sh, trabajar. I've heard that from native Mexicans. So the real issue for most people is that you feel unconscious, you feel conscious, self-conscious, unconscious, self-conscious. And so you want to watch out for that. Just stop it. Just learn to pronounce it. One way you can do it is be by yourself and go in front of the mirror in your bathroom, you know, hide when nobody's around and go, and if that's not enough, if that you can't make yourself do that, try this. I don't know a single adult who can't go, and that has that particular Raspberry has been named at me many times, often by students. So, and what you do is when you're doing flapping your tongue outside your mouth like that, then pull your tongue in without stopping the flapping. And watch this. Same flap. So you can do this. Repeat, please. Rojo, rojo. Let's try the word for railroad. Ferrocarril. Beautiful. You're on your way. The letter S, pronounced like S. The letter T is pronounced like D with voicing. So again, tango, tango, not tango, but tango, tango. Right? The letter V is very similar. Tango. Here you are. No, stop it. I did not ask you, Google, to tell me about tangos. Oh, boy. So the letter V is pronounced like B, but softer. It's not a V sound. If you say, for example, bebe, bebe, and then say conjugate the verb ir in the present. Voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. Voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. A lot of people will write VOY as VOY because the sound is so similar. You just not say voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. But it's not voy, vas, va, vamos, vais, van. It's voy is not the word. It's boy, boy. Maybe a tiny bit of to it. Okay, that's how these work. The letter W is completely a borrowed letter. It doesn't get used in any native Spanish word, but it'll be used in something like Washington, okay? Like the president or the state or the capital of the US, Washington. It's pronounced with the V sound, so you'd think, well, why don't they use V for V? Spanish has its own reason. The letter X, you might know words like Xochimilco from Mexico, where you have the sho at the beginning of the word. You also have the word Mexico itself, which has a he sound, xi. We are not going to consider those native Spanish sounds. They actually are from Aztec, the Aztec language, Nahuatl. And so X is pronounced, unlike English, without voicing. So it's not exact, it's exacto, exactamente. So exacto, right? Not exacto or yeah, that's all I can put together. Exacto. Okay? Borrowed words from Aztec sometimes do use the letter X. The letter Y experienced a name change recently. For one thing, its original name was Y, and that's because that letter was taken from the Greek letter ypsilon, and the Y sound is relatively similar to what the Greeks used for that letter. We have E Latina, which is the Roman I, the Latin language I, and you just call that E. Whereas if you add, if you have a Y, it's called Y. But a lot of countries, especially in the Caribbean, started calling that letter Ye. And for that reason, the Royal Academy of Spanish Language eventually said, more people are calling it Ye than Y, so we're changing its name to Ye. That was in the past few years. You should call it Ye rather than Y. And the letter Z. Oh, I want to talk about pronunciation. Ye at the beginning of a word and also in the middle of the word, like vaya, and at the end of the word, estoy. It's always uy or ya. So essentially it's a consonant at the beginning of the word, and in the middle, like, no, let's not go there. But some people pronounce that with a little bit of a fricative there, so they'll say something like vaya, okay? Or the word YA in Mexico, at least, is pronounced ja. Okay? And then we have Z, which is always pronounced like this. It's not pronounced like z. We don't make a buzzing sound with it. So the word shoe, for example, is repitan, zapato. Tengo 20 zapatos. Okay. So as you rattle off a sentence and you say z, just stop yourself and remember that you have to say s rather than z. And the letter z is never followed by e or I because Spanish has set that spelling rule in place, so it's prohibited to have z plus e or I. So the word for zero, Z-E-R-O, in Spanish is cero, C-E-R-O, and zebra is C-E-B-R-A, zebra. But the letter Z in Spain, like as is the letter C, is pronounced with a sound. So theta is the name of the letter, Z-E-T-A, theta. But zoológico and any number of other words, of course. Anything that has a Z in it, like casa, which is not casa. Casa is a house. Caza is the hunt. Okay, so in some words, it's better. It's easier to know those, to hear the Spanish pronunciation. However, you can't make puns like la mujer caza al hombre y el hombre se casa, which means the woman hunts the man and the man gets married. So that is essentially the entire alphabet, all the pronunciation. And as I said before, it's really important for you to get the pronunciation in pretty good shape. You want to sound like a really near native speaker by the time you get to where you can talk fast and know a lot of verb tenses. Okay? Thank you. Bye.